The music stopped. The ex-nanny entered, uninvited. She pressed play. The bride's voice echoed through the church. "He is rich. I'll take the money and leave." The groom hugged the twins and left with the nanny. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. "I can't do this anymore," James Wilson whispered, his voice cracking as he stared at the lines of code on his computer screen. The baby monitor beside him crackled with the sound of Emma crying again. It was 3 a.m. in his Beacon Hill mansion, and this was the 4th night in a row of almost no sleep. He rubbed his tired blue eyes and pushed away from his desk. The code for his cybersecurity company could wait. His daughter needed him now. In the nursery, Emma's face was red from crying. Her twin brother Max slept soundly in the crib next to hers. "Shh, it's okay," James said, lifting Emma gently. "Daddy's here." But Emma continued to cry, and James felt the familiar wave of helplessness wash over him. 6 months had passed since Catherine died giving birth to their twins, and he still had no idea what he was doing. "I wish your mom was here," he whispered, rocking Emma back and forth. She would know exactly what to do. The next morning, James sat in his living room interviewing yet another potential nanny. This was the 5th candidate, and like the others, she seemed overwhelmed by the idea of caring for twins. "They're usually quiet," James lied as Max started fussing in his playpen. The woman, Mrs. Peterson, glanced nervously at the babies. "I prefer working with older children," she admitted. "Once they can talk and tell you what they need." James nodded politely, but inside he felt another door closing. He needed help, and soon. When Zoe Johnson arrived for her interview that afternoon, James had almost given up hope. She was younger than the other candidates, only 25, and her bright yellow dress stood out against the muted grays and blues of his home. "Mr. Wilson? I'm Zoe Johnson," she said, shaking his hand firmly. Then, instead of taking the seat he offered, Zoe knelt beside the playpen where the twins were sitting. "Hello there," she said softly, her voice changing to something warm and musical. "You must be Max and Emma. I'm Zoe. It's very nice to meet you both." To James's surprise, Max reached out toward her, making the little gurgling sound that was his version of laughter. "He likes you," James said, amazed. Zoe smiled up at him. Babies can sense when someone genuinely likes them. "And I do like them, very much." During the interview, James learned that Zoe had a degree in child development from Penn State and had worked her way through college as a part-time nanny. "Why do you want this job?" James asked. "With your qualifications, you could work anywhere." Zoe looked directly at him. "Because these babies lost their mother. Every child deserves someone who looks at them like they hung the moon. I want to be that person for Max and Emma while you're building your company." Her honesty struck him. For the first time since Catherine died, James felt a small weight lift from his shoulders. That Sunday, his parents came for lunch. As Zoe played with the twins in the living room, Robert and Eleanor Wilson watched with matching frowns. "She seems very young," his mother said quietly. "Wouldn't someone with more experience be better?" "Look how the twins respond to her," James countered. "They've been happier in the 3 days she's been here than in the past 6 months." His father sighed. "We just want what's best for you and the children, James. Your mother and I could help you find someone more suitable." James knew what they meant. Zoe, with her natural hair and bright clothes, didn't fit their idea of what a nanny in their social circle should look like. But James didn't care about that anymore. "I've made my decision," he said firmly. "Zoe stays." 6 months later, James stood in the hallway watching as Zoe read a bedtime story to the twins. Now 1-year-old, they sat captivated as she created different voices for each character in the book. When Emma giggled at a funny part, James found himself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in months. They loved that book, he said when Zoe came out of the nursery after putting them down. "They love any story with animals," Zoe replied. "Max especially likes the bear voices." "Thank you," James said suddenly, "for everything you've done. I don't know where we'd be without you." Zoe's expression softened. "They're amazing children, Mr. Wilson. It's my pleasure to care for them. Please, call me James. I think after 6 months, we can drop the formality." The following Friday, James's business partner, Mike Donovan, stopped by the house unexpectedly. "You need to get out," Mike announced, handing James an invitation. "The Boston Museum of Fine Arts is hosting a charity gala tomorrow night. Secure Shield made a major donation, so you should be there." James shook his head. "I can't leave the twins. Zoe will be here," Mike interrupted. "James, you need to rejoin the world. It's been over a year." Seeing his friend's concern, James reluctantly agreed. The next evening, James stood awkwardly at the edge of the museum's grand hall, nursing a glass of champagne. He was about to text Zoe to check on the twins when a voice interrupted his thoughts. "That was a wonderful speech you gave about cybersecurity education." James turned to see a tall, blonde woman in a form-fitting blue dress. Her smile was perfect, practiced. "Thank you," he said, though I doubt most people understood the technical parts. "Brittany Adams," she said, extending her hand. "I understood perfectly. I work in pharmaceutical sales. I'm used to translating complex information for different audiences." Something about her confidence intrigued him. They talked for nearly an hour before exchanging phone numbers. 3 days later, they had their first date at Soralina, one of Boston's most exclusive restaurants. "Tell me about your children," Brittany said over dessert. "Twins must be a handful." "They are," James admitted. "But I have an amazing nanny. Zoe's been with us for almost a year now." "I'd love to meet them sometime," Brittany said, touching his hand lightly. "I've always wanted children." 2 weeks later, Brittany visited the house for dinner. When James introduced her to the twins, she immediately knelt down, much like Zoe had done during her interview. "Hello, precious ones," she cooed. "Aren't you both just perfect?" Max and Emma stared at her uncertainly, but when James encouraged them, they eventually let Brittany hold them. "They're so well-behaved," Brittany said admiringly. "You're doing an amazing job, James." "It's mostly Zoe," he admitted. "She has a way with them." From the kitchen doorway, Zoe observed the scene quietly. When James stepped away to answer a phone call, Brittany's smile dropped slightly. She set Emma down in the playpen and checked her phone, ignoring the baby's outstretched arms. When James returned, Brittany's perfect smile was back in place. Over lunch the next week, James confided in Mike about his growing feelings for Brittany. "She's amazing with the kids," he said, "and she makes me feel normal again, like maybe I could have that family I always wanted for Max and Emma." Mike studied his friend carefully. "You've only known her for 4 months, James. Are you sure it's not too soon?" "When you know," James insisted. "Catherine would want me to move forward." A month later, James took Brittany to meet his parents at their Cape Cod home. Eleanor was reserved at first, but Robert welcomed Brittany warmly, especially when she mentioned her father's connections in the medical community. On their drive back to Boston, Brittany rested her head on James's shoulder. "Your parents are lovely. They want what's best for you and the twins." That night, James made his decision. 2 weeks later, he proposed to Brittany at a rooftop restaurant overlooking Boston Harbor, offering his grandmother's ring. Her eyes widened at the size of the diamond. "Yes," she exclaimed as other diners applauded. "Of course I'll marry you, James." The next morning, James called Zoe into his office to share the news. "Brittany and I are engaged," he said, unable to contain his smile. "We're planning the wedding for 3 months from now, at St. Patrick's Cathedral." "Congratulations," Zoe said, her own smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I'm happy for you." As she turned to leave, Max and Emma toddled into the room, clinging to her legs and babbling excitedly. James watched as Zoe knelt to hug them, whispering something that made them giggle. That evening, as James and Brittany discussed wedding details over dinner, she casually mentioned, "Once we're married, we should probably reassess the household staff. I have some ideas about changes that might work better for our new family." James paused, fork halfway to his mouth. Changes? What kind of changes? Brittany reached for his hand, her diamond ring catching the light. "Nothing immediate. We can talk about it after the honeymoon. I just want everything to be perfect for us." As she continued discussing flower arrangements, James couldn't shake the uneasy feeling her words had stirred. But looking at her beautiful smile, he pushed his concerns aside. This was what moving forward looked like. This was what his family needed, wasn't it? "We should probably reassess the household staff after we're married." Brittany's words echoed in James's mind as he watched her enter his home more frequently over the next few weeks. With only 3 weeks until their wedding at St. Patrick's Cathedral, James noticed subtle changes in the household atmosphere. One afternoon, Brittany sat in the living room with her friend Megan, looking at wedding magazines. The twins were playing nearby with blocks Zoe had set out for them. "I can't believe we found that venue," Megan said, flipping through pages of elaborate table settings. "The flowers alone must cost a fortune." "James doesn't mind," Brittany replied, glancing at the twins. "It's going to be the society event of the year." Emma toddled over, offering Brittany a colorful block. Brittany barely looked at her. "Not now, sweetie," she said, gently pushing the block away. "Auntie Brittany is busy." When Emma's face crumpled, Megan laughed. "Kids are so dramatic. They're just a lot," Brittany said quietly, "always needing something. Good thing they'll have a new nanny soon." Zoe, entering with a tray of tea, stopped short. Brittany's smile returned immediately. "Oh, thank you, Zoe. You're always so thoughtful," she said brightly. Later that day, Zoe was organizing the twins' clothes when Brittany walked by with a glass of cranberry juice. She bumped into the neatly folded pile, spilling juice across several outfits. "Oh no!" Brittany gasped. "I'm so clumsy." "Sorry about that." Zoe took a deep breath. "It's okay. Accidents happen." "You're so understanding," Brittany said, patting Zoe's shoulder. "No wonder James values you." That evening, James hosted a small dinner party for Brittany and some friends. Brittany entered the dining room wearing a stunning black dress, her wrist adorned with a sparkling diamond bracelet. "This was my grandmother's," she announced, holding out her wrist for everyone to admire. "It's worth $25,000. She gave it to me before she passed away." "It's beautiful," James said, kissing her cheek. "I only wear it for special occasions," Brittany continued. "It's my most treasured possession." Upstairs, Zoe was reading bedtime stories to the twins when Brittany's loud laughter drifted up from below. Max covered his ears. "Too loud," he complained. "It's okay, buddy," Zoe soothed. "Let's finish our story." Emma pointed to the book. "Again, Zozo." "One more time," Zoe agreed. "Then sleep for my favorite twins." The next morning, James left early for a meeting. Shortly after 9 o'clock, Zoe was feeding the twins breakfast when she heard Brittany's voice from upstairs. "Oh my God! James! James!" Zoe rushed to the foot of the stairs. "Miss Adams, is everything okay?" Brittany appeared at the top of the staircase, her face streaked with tears. "Where's James?" "I need James." "He's at a meeting," Zoe explained. "What's wrong?" "My bracelet," Brittany sobbed. "My grandmother's bracelet is gone." "Gone? Where did you last see it?" "In the guest bathroom," Brittany said, coming downstairs. "I took it off to wash my hands last night and now it's missing." Zoe frowned. "Did you check your purse?" "Maybe you put it there before leaving?" "Of course I checked. I've looked everywhere," Brittany snapped. "It's worth $25,000. "I'll help you look," Zoe offered. But Brittany's expression suddenly changed. "Wait," she said slowly. "Who else was upstairs last night?" "Just you, right? With the twins?" "Yes, but..." You were the only one up there after I took it off, Brittany said, her voice hardening. You were the only one who could have taken it. Zoe stepped back, shocked. Miss Adams, I would never steal from this family. Never. Then where is it? Brittany demanded. It didn't just disappear. James returned home around noon to find Brittany in tears on the sofa. When he saw her distress, he rushed to her side. What happened? He asked, alarmed. My grandmother's bracelet, Brittany sobbed. It's gone, James. I left it in the bathroom last night and now it's gone. James looked confused. Could it have fallen somewhere? Did you check? I've checked everywhere, Brittany interrupted. There's only one explanation. She lowered her voice. Zoe was the only person upstairs after me. James's face darkened. That's a serious accusation, Brittany. I know, she whispered. I didn't want to believe it either. But the facts are the facts. When James called Zoe into his office, she immediately sensed something was wrong. The twins were napping and the house was unnaturally quiet. Zoe, James began awkwardly, Brittany's diamond bracelet has gone missing. She says she left it in the guest bathroom last night. I heard, Zoe said carefully. But Mr. Wilson, I didn't take it. I would never steal from you or anyone in this house. I want to believe you, James said. You've been with us for 2 years with no issues. Because I'm honest, Zoe insisted. You know me, Mr. Wilson. James looked pained. Would you allow me to search your room? Just to clear things up? Zoe felt like she'd been slapped. You really think I stole it? I don't know what to think, James admitted. But $25,000 is a lot of money, and Brittany is devastated. Fine, Zoe said stiffly. Search my room, search my bag, search everything I own. In the nursery, the twins woke from their nap, sensing the tension. Emma began to cry, reaching for Zoe when she entered the room. Zozo sad? Max asked, his little face concerned. It's okay, buddy, Zoe said, though her voice trembled. James and Brittany searched Zoe's room thoroughly. They found nothing, but Brittany wasn't satisfied. She could have hidden it anywhere, Brittany said when they were alone in James's office. Or already sold it. James, I hate to say this, but I don't feel comfortable with her in our home anymore. She's been with us for 2 years, James argued. The twins adore her. But can you trust her? Brittany pressed. Can you trust someone who would steal a family heirloom? What else might she take? James, I'm going to be your wife. You need to trust me on this. After an hour of discussion, James made his decision. With a heavy heart, he called Zoe back to his office. I'm sorry, he said, not meeting her eyes. But I think it's best You're firing me, Zoe said flatly. James nodded. I have to trust my future wife, Zoe. I'll give you an excellent reference and 3 months severance pay. I didn't take the bracelet, Zoe said, her voice breaking. Those children are everything to me. I know you care about them, James said, but my decision is final. Please pack your things today. In her room, Zoe packed while listening to music on her phone to keep from crying. She set the phone down on a shelf to gather her clothes. The twins toddled in, sensing something was wrong. Zozo, go? Emma asked, her lower lip trembling. Zoe knelt down, gathering them both in her arms. Zozo has to go away for a while, she whispered. But I want you both to know that I love you very, very much. Love, Zozo, Max said, clutching her shirt. I will always love you, Zoe promised, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Always and forever. With her bags packed, Zoe took one last look around the room. James waited by the front door, the twins now crying in their playpen. I'm sorry it ended this way, he said awkwardly. So am I, Zoe replied. She walked out without looking back, the twins' cries following her down the driveway. That night, James sat exhausted on the floor between the twins' beds. They had refused to sleep, calling for Zozo repeatedly until they finally collapsed from exhaustion. "It's okay," he whispered, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to them or himself. "We'll figure this out." Across town, Zoe entered her friend Sarah's apartment, her face streaked with tears. "They fired me," she said as Sarah hugged her. "Brittany accused me of stealing her bracelet." "That's ridiculous," Sarah said. "What are you going to do?" Suddenly, Zoe froze. "My phone!" she gasped. "I left my phone at their house." The phone that had been sitting on the shelf, accidentally recording everything in the room after she'd set it down. "I need to get my phone back," Zoe said, pacing across Sarah's small living room. The realization hit her like a physical blow. "I can't believe I left it there." "We can go first thing in the morning," Sarah offered, checking her watch. "It's almost midnight now." "What if they find it? What if they throw it away?" Zoe's mind raced with possibilities. "James wouldn't do that," Sarah reassured her. "He might be making bad decisions right now, but he's not cruel." Zoe barely slept that night. By 7 in the morning, she was ready to leave, dressed in the same clothes from yesterday since most of her belongings were still in her bags. "Take my car," Sarah said, handing her the keys to her blue Honda. "I can get a ride to work with my neighbor." "Thank you," Zoe said, hugging her friend tightly. "For everything." The drive to Beacon Hill felt longer than usual. Zoe timed her arrival carefully. James always had a video meeting with his overseas team at 8:15 every morning. If she could get there during that meeting, she might avoid seeing him. When she pulled up to the familiar mansion, her heart ached seeing the twins' colorful toys scattered across the front lawn. Taking a deep breath, she walked up to the door and rang the bell. Maria, the housekeeper, answered with a surprised expression. "Miss Zoe? I didn't expect to see you." "Hi, Maria," Zoe said quietly. "I left my phone here yesterday. Is Mr. Wilson home?" "He's in his office on a call," Maria replied, stepping aside. Come in, come in. The twins have been crying for you all night." "I miss them too," Zoe admitted, entering the house she'd called home for 2 years. "Do you know where my phone might be?" "I think I left it in my room." "I haven't seen it, but you can look. No one has cleaned your room yet." Zoe quickly made her way upstairs, careful to avoid James's office. Her room looked exactly as she'd left it, except for a few toys the twins must have brought in after she left. On the shelf where she'd placed it, her phone sat quietly. "Thank goodness," she whispered, grabbing it and checking that it still had power. The screen showed it had been recording for over 14 hours before finally running out of battery. She plugged it into her portable charger and hurried back downstairs. "Did you find it?" Maria asked. "Yes, thank you," Zoe said. "How are Max and Emma?" Maria's face fell. "Not good. They don't understand why you left. They keep asking for Zozo." From upstairs came the sound of a door opening. James's voice drifted down. "Maria, who was at the door?" "I should go," Zoe said quickly. "Please take care of them, Maria." She slipped out the front door and back to Sarah's car, her heart pounding. As she drove away, she looked in the rearview mirror at the house that had been her home. The twins would be waking up now, asking for her again. Back at Sarah's apartment, Zoe connected her phone to a charger and waited impatiently for it to power on. Sarah had already left for work, so Zoe was alone when she finally accessed the recording. The first hour was just the sounds of her packing, the twins coming in, and her emotional goodbye to them. But then, after she left, the recording continued. Zoe fast-forwarded through silence until she heard voices entering the room. "I can't believe you made him fire her," a woman's voice said. It was Megan, Brittany's friend. "I had to," Brittany replied. "She was too close to him and those kids. Did you see how they cling to her? It's pathetic. But accusing her of stealing? That's cold, Britt. Please. James is rich. I'll marry him, take the money, and leave. Those babies are annoying anyway. And that bracelet I claimed was stolen? I hid it in my bathroom drawer just to get rid of the nanny. She was too close to James." Zoe gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Won't he be suspicious when the bracelet suddenly reappears?" Megan asked. "I'll find it after the honeymoon. Say it was misplaced. By then, Zoe will be long gone and I'll be Mrs. James Wilson with access to his bank accounts." Zoe stopped the recording, her hands shaking. She had proof. Actual proof that Brittany was a liar who only wanted James's money. She had to warn him. Immediately, Zoe tried calling James's cell phone. The call went straight to voicemail. She tried again with the same result. After the fifth attempt, she realized her number had been blocked. "No, no, no," she muttered, switching to email. She typed an urgent message explaining what she'd discovered and attached the audio file. Within seconds, she received an automated response. "Delivery failed. Recipient has blocked this sender." "She thought of everything," Zoe said aloud, stunned by Brittany's thoroughness. Meanwhile, at the Wilson house, James tried to feed breakfast to the twins, who were both unusually quiet. Emma pushed away her favorite strawberry oatmeal. "Want Zozo?" she said, her little face serious. "Zozo isn't here anymore, sweetheart," James explained gently. "But Daddy's here. And soon Brittany will be your new mommy." At the mention of Brittany, Max threw his spoon on the floor. "No! Want Zozo!" James sighed, picking up the spoon. The twins had been like this since Zoe left yesterday. He'd barely slept, spending most of the night sitting between their beds as they cried for their nanny. The doorbell rang, and moments later Brittany swept in carrying a thick folder. "Good morning, my loves," she called cheerfully. She gave James a quick kiss, then nodded at the twins without actually approaching them. "I've been busy. Look what I have." She opened the folder on the table, revealing photos and resumes. "I've thoroughly vetted 3 potential nannies. All are excellent candidates with years of experience." James looked at the papers. All 3 women were in their 50s or 60s with stern expressions in their photos. "That was quick," he said carefully. "Well, we need someone right away, don't we?" Brittany smiled. "I've scheduled interviews for this afternoon." Across town, Zoe made a desperate decision. If she couldn't reach James by phone or email, she would go to his office building downtown. Surely he would listen if she could speak to him face to face. She drove Sarah's car to the gleaming tower where Secure Shield had its headquarters. The security guard at the front desk stopped her immediately. "ID and appointment, please," he requested. "I don't have an appointment, but I need to see James Wilson urgently. I used to work for him. It's about his children." The guard typed something into his computer, then frowned. "I'm sorry, but you're on the restricted list." "I can't let you up." "Restricted list?" Zoe repeated, confused. "Yes, ma'am. We have instructions not to allow you into the building under any circumstances. I can call Mr. Wilson if you'd like to leave a message." "Please," Zoe begged, "just tell him I need 5 minutes." The guard made the call, speaking quietly. After a moment, he hung up. "I'm sorry, Miss Johnson. Mr. Wilson is unavailable." Through the glass doors, Zoe spotted James stepping into the lobby from an elevator. She waved frantically, but before he could see her, he entered another elevator heading up. Defeated, Zoe returned to Sarah's apartment. She sat on the couch, staring at her phone. Brittany had systematically cut off every way for her to reach James. "Think, Zoe," she told herself. "Who else might listen?" The answer came to her suddenly. James's parents. Robert and Eleanor Wilson lived in a beach house in Cape Cod. They might not believe her either, but she had to try. When Sarah returned from work, Zoe explained what she'd discovered. "Listen to this," she said, playing the recording. Sarah's eyes widened. "That's clear evidence," Sarah said when it finished. "But will his parents believe you?" "I don't know," Zoe admitted, "but I have to try. Those children don't deserve to be raised by someone who thinks they're annoying." Sarah, who worked in digital forensics, examined the audio file. "This is genuine. The timestamp and metadata are intact. There's no evidence of editing." The next morning, Zoe packed a small bag and got into her old car. The drive to Cape Cod would take about 2 hours from Boston. "Good luck," Sarah called as Zoe started the engine. "Call me if you need anything." As she drove, Zoe rehearsed what she would say to the Wilsons. Robert had always been distant with her, but Eleanor had seemed to appreciate how much Zoe cared for her grandchildren. The Wilson beach house was an impressive white colonial with blue shutters perched on a hill overlooking the ocean. Zoe parked in the curved driveway, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. "For Max and Emma," she whispered to herself, gathering her courage. She took her phone with the recording and walked to the front door, heart pounding. Taking a deep breath, she knocked firmly. After a moment, the door opened to reveal Robert Wilson, tall and distinguished in a casual sweater. His welcoming expression hardened instantly when he recognized Zoe. Behind him, Eleanor appeared in the hallway, her face showing surprise and something else. Was it concern? Hope? Zoe couldn't tell, but she squared her shoulders and prepared to fight for the children she loved. Robert Wilson's face turned stern as he recognized Zoe standing at his door. "Miss Johnson," he said coldly, "what are you doing here?" "Mr. Wilson, I need to speak with you and Mrs. Wilson," Zoe said. "It's important. It's about James and the twins." "We already heard what happened," Robert replied, blocking the doorway. "James told us everything." Eleanor Wilson stepped forward. "Robert, perhaps we should hear what she has to say." Robert shook his head firmly. "There's nothing to discuss. You were fired for stealing, young lady." "I didn't steal anything," Zoe insisted. "Please just listen to this recording. Brittany is lying about everything." She held out her phone, but Robert refused to take it. "Young lady," he said, his voice rising, "my son has finally found happiness again. Don't ruin this with jealousy." "This isn't about jealousy," Zoe pleaded. "It's about protecting James and the children from someone who's using them." "That's enough!" Robert's voice was sharp. "Brittany Adams comes from a good family." "She would never do what you're suggesting." "Just listen to the recording," Zoe begged. "Just 1 minute of it." Eleanor stepped closer. "Robert, maybe we should—" "No," he interrupted. "I think you should leave now. Ms. Johnson, don't contact my family again." As Robert turned away, Eleanor gave Zoe a conflicted look. While her husband wasn't watching, she quickly slipped a piece of paper into Zoe's hand before closing the door. In her car, Zoe unfolded the paper. It contained a phone number with a note, "Call me tomorrow. Eleanor." Back in Boston, James watched as Mrs. Abernathy, the new nanny, tried to get Max to eat his lunch. "Come now, young man," she said firmly. "Your father pays good money for this food." Max pressed his lips together and shook his head. "Want Zozo spoon?" he said stubbornly. Mrs. Abernathy sighed. "Mr. Wilson, I can't force him to eat." Emma sat in her high chair, her own food untouched. She hadn't spoken all morning except to ask for Zozo. "They'll adjust," James said, though worry creased his forehead. "It's only been 3 days." That evening, Brittany came over with wedding catalogs. When James mentioned the twins' behavior, she barely looked up from the glossy pages. "It's just an adjustment period," she said dismissively. "All children go through this. They'll forget about her in a week." "I don't know," James said. "They've never acted like this before." Max threw his favorite book across the room today when Mrs. Abernathy tried to read it to him. Brittany reached for his hand. "James, darling, you're overthinking this. Let's focus on our honeymoon plans. I've narrowed it down to Bali or the Maldives." James nodded, but his eyes drifted to the twins' room where Mrs. Abernathy was trying to settle them for bed. Their unhappy cries made his chest tighten. The next morning, Zoe sat in her car outside the downtown office building where Mike Donovan worked. She'd called ahead, and to her surprise, he'd agreed to see her. Mike's assistant led her into a sleek corner office with views of Boston Harbor. "Zoe," Mike said, standing to greet her, "this is unexpected." "Thank you for seeing me," she replied. "I know you probably heard James's version of what happened." Mike gestured to a chair. "He said you were fired for stealing Brittany's bracelet." "I didn't steal anything," Zoe said firmly. "Mike, I have proof that Brittany is lying about everything." She explained about the recording and played the crucial section for him. Mike listened, his expression growing more serious with each word. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair. "That's concerning." "It's more than concerning," Zoe insisted. "She admitted to hiding the bracelet herself just to get me fired. She only wants James's money." Mike tapped his fingers on his desk. "Look, Zoe, I know you care about those kids, but this sounds extreme. Brittany comes from a good family. Maybe you misunderstood what you heard." "Misunderstood?" Zoe repeated in disbelief. "Mike, she literally said she's going to marry him, take his money, and leave. Those were her exact words." "People say things they don't mean when they're upset," Mike said carefully. "But I'll keep an eye on things, I promise." "That's not enough," Zoe argued. "The wedding is in less than 2 weeks. Once they're married, she'll have access to everything." Mike sighed. "I'll talk to James, okay? But gently. He's been through a lot, and he really believes Brittany makes him happy." Zoe left feeling frustrated. Mike hadn't fully believed her, but at least he'd listened. It was more than Robert Wilson had done. That afternoon, Zoe checked her email and found a message from a law firm representing Brittany Adams. Miss Johnson, this letter serves as formal notice to cease and desist all contact with James Wilson, his family members and business associates. Your continued harassment following your termination constitutes grounds for legal action. Any further attempts to contact Mr. Wilson or spread defamatory statements about Ms. Adams will result in immediate legal proceedings. Regards, Lawrence Whitman, Esquire. Zoe stared at the screen in shock. Now Brittany was threatening to sue her. Before she could process this, her phone rang. It was her landlord, Mr. Peterson. "Zoe, I hate to do this," he said without preamble, "but your rent is past due." "I know," Zoe said, her heart sinking. "I lost my job unexpectedly. Can I have another week to figure things out?" "I already gave you an extension," Mr. Peterson replied. "I need the apartment by the end of the week. I have new tenants coming in." After hanging up, Zoe sat on Sarah's couch, overwhelmed. In less than a week, she'd lost her job, her home with the children she loved, and now her apartment. "I can stay here as long as you need," Sarah assured her when she got home from work. "The couch is yours." "Thank you," Zoe said quietly. "I don't know what I'd do without you." The next day, they packed Zoe's belongings into Sarah's car. There wasn't much, just clothes, books, and a few personal items. She had to leave her furniture behind. "It's just stuff," Zoe said, trying to sound positive as they drove away from her apartment building. "I can get more stuff later." At the Wilson house, James watched as contractors installed new locks on all the exterior doors. "Is this really necessary?" he asked Brittany, who was supervising the work. "Absolutely," she replied. "For security reasons. After what happened with Zoe, we need to be more careful." "I suppose," James said, though something about it made him uneasy. Later, Brittany positioned the twins in matching outfits on the living room floor, surrounded by toys. "Smile for mommy," she cooed, taking photos with her phone. The twins stared at her blankly. As soon as she got the pictures she wanted, Brittany handed them back to Mrs. Abernathy. "Make sure they change before dinner," she instructed. "These outfits are just for the photos." That evening, Zoe finally called the number Eleanor had given her. The older woman answered in a whisper. "Zoe?" "I can't talk now." "Mrs. Wilson, please," Zoe said urgently. "I have proof that Brittany is lying about everything." "I believe you might be right," Eleanor said, her voice barely audible. "I've noticed things that don't seem right. The way she acts when James isn't watching." "Then help me stop this wedding," Zoe pleaded. "I can't," Eleanor replied. "Robert is completely charmed by her and James won't listen to me. I have to go. He's coming." The line went dead, leaving Zoe feeling more alone than ever. She sat on Sarah's couch staring at her phone. Every door seemed to be closing. James's family, his best friend, even the legal system were all working against her. As she scrolled through her phone looking at old pictures of the twins, a notification appeared. A social media alert for the wedding hashtag James and Brittany Forever. People were posting about the upcoming rehearsal dinner at the Liberty Hotel. Sarah, who had been working on her laptop, looked up. "I might be able to help with that recording," she said suddenly. "My job in digital forensics gives me access to tools that can authenticate audio files. If we can prove it hasn't been altered, that might help convince someone to listen." For the first time in days, Zoe felt a small spark of hope. Maybe not all doors were closed after all. Sarah opened her laptop and launched a program with a complex interface. "I use this software at work to verify audio evidence for court cases," she explained, connecting Zoe's phone to her computer. "Can it really prove the recording is real?" Zoe asked, watching as Sarah worked. "It analyzes the digital signature and sound waves," Sarah nodded. "If someone edited this recording, the program will detect it." Sarah worked silently for several minutes, typing commands and studying the screen. Finally, she looked up with a smile. "It's authentic," she said. "The timestamp matches when you left it recording, and there are no signs of editing or manipulation. I can generate an official authentication certificate." Zoe hugged her friend tightly. "Thank you. This might be enough to convince Mike to talk to James." The next morning, Zoe emailed the authenticated recording to Mike Donovan with a simple message. "Please listen again. This is real." To her surprise, Mike called her back within the hour. "I had our tech team analyze it too," he said. "They confirmed it's authentic." "So you believe me now?" Zoe asked hopefully. Mike sighed. "It's concerning, I'll admit that. James and I have a standing lunch meeting today. I'll bring it up carefully." "Thank you," Zoe said. "The twins need someone to protect them." At an upscale restaurant in downtown Boston, Mike and James sat at their usual corner table. James looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. "Rough night?" Mike asked as they ordered. "The twins aren't sleeping well," James admitted. "They wake up crying for Zoe multiple times each night." Mike nodded sympathetically. "How are things with Brittany? Wedding preparations going smoothly?" "Mostly," James said, poking at his salad. "She's different lately." "Different how?" Mike prompted. James set down his fork. "She's less interested in the twins. At first she was so attentive with them, but now she barely interacts with them unless I'm watching, and she keeps asking about my finances, details about accounts I haven't even told my parents about." Mike took a deep breath. "James, have you considered postponing the wedding, just until things settle down with the twins?" "Postpone?" James looked startled. "We can't. Everything's arranged. St. Patrick's Cathedral, hundreds of guests." "It's just a suggestion," Mike said carefully. "But the twins are clearly struggling, and you seem uncertain." James stared out the window. Across the street, in the public garden, Brittany sat on a bench checking her phone. Emma stood next to her, trying to show her a flower she had picked. "Look at that," James said quietly. "Emma's trying to get Brittany's attention, and she won't even look up from her phone." Mike followed his gaze. "Have you talked to Brittany about how she interacts with the twins?" "I tried," James said. "Last night, actually." When James returned home that evening, he found Brittany sitting in the living room with wedding catalogs while Mrs. Abernathy struggled to get the twins ready for bed upstairs. "Brittany," James said, sitting beside her, "I need to talk to you about the twins." She looked up, her perfect smile in place. "What about them?" "I've noticed you don't spend much time with them anymore," he said carefully. "When we first met, you seemed so interested in them, but now—" Brittany's smile disappeared instantly. Her eyes filled with tears. "How can you say that? I'm trying so hard with them, James." "I didn't mean to upset you," James backpedaled. It's just that you don't trust me," she interrupted, tears now streaming down her face. "First you think I'm lying about the bracelet, and now you're accusing me of not caring about your children. That's not what I—" I've been planning our perfect wedding for weeks, Brittany continued, sobbing. I've been stressed about making everything perfect for us, for our family. And this is how you thank me? James felt terrible. He wrapped his arms around her. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I love those children, Brittany whispered against his chest. They'll be my children too soon. You need to trust me, James. I do trust you, he said, guilt washing over him. I'm sorry for doubting you. Back at their lunch, James sighed. She got so upset, made me feel like I was the one with the problem. Mike studied his friend carefully. James, I need to tell you something. Zoe contacted me. James's expression hardened. She's been harassing everyone. My parents, now you. She played me a recording, Mike continued, something her phone captured accidentally after she left. A recording? Of what? Of Brittany, Mike said carefully, talking to her friend about her real intentions. James stood up abruptly. I can't believe you'd fall for this, Mike. Zoe is clearly trying to cause trouble because she got caught stealing. James, wait, I need to go, James said, throwing money on the table. I thought you were on my side. Meanwhile, Zoe interviewed for a nanny position with the Parker family in a wealthy Boston suburb. Their 3 children had immediately warmed to her, showing her their toys and books. Your references are excellent, Mrs. Parker said, and the children clearly love you already. Thank you, Zoe replied. I enjoy connecting with children. Mrs. Parker smiled, then glanced at her phone with a frown. That's odd. I just got a text from Caroline Miller. Is everything okay? Zoe asked. Mrs. Parker looked uncomfortable suddenly. She says you were fired from the Wilson family for stealing jewelry? Is that true? Zoe's heart sank. No, Mrs. Parker. I was falsely accused. I see, Mrs. Parker said, her tone now cool. Well, thank you for coming in, but I think we'll continue interviewing other candidates. Outside, Zoe fought back tears. This was the 3rd interview that had ended this way. Somehow, Brittany was spreading rumors about her throughout Boston's wealthy circles. When Eleanor finally called back that evening, Zoe was feeling defeated. I'm sorry I had to hang up before, Eleanor said. Robert was coming and he doesn't know I'm talking to you. It's okay, Zoe said. I understand. I believe you about Brittany, Eleanor continued. I've seen how she behaves when James isn't watching. The way she ignores the twins, the way she checks her phone constantly. It's not how someone acts when they're in love. What can we do? Zoe asked. No one will listen to me. James blocked my number. Mike tried, but James got angry, and now Brittany is ruining my reputation so I can't even find work. I'll try to talk to James, Eleanor promised, but he's so determined to believe Brittany. He wants the twins to have a mother so badly. Later that night, Zoe scrolled through social media posts about the upcoming wedding. She noticed a series of photos from Brittany's bachelorette party last weekend. In one image, several women posed around Brittany at an expensive restaurant. The caption read, Final girls' night before at Brittany Adams becomes Mrs. Wilson. James and Brittany forever. Zoe zoomed in on the photo, studying the faces. She recognized one of the women as the friend who had been in the recording. The tag confirmed it, at Megan Lewis. Sarah! Zoe called excitedly. I found her. This is Megan from the recording. Sarah came over to look. That's definitely good to know. Now we have a face to match the voice. At the Wilson house, James walked past the twins' bedroom and heard Max crying softly. He opened the door to find the little boy sitting in his bed, clutching a framed photograph. Hey, buddy, James said gently. What's wrong? Why aren't you sleeping? Max held up the photo, which showed Zoe holding both twins on her lap, all 3 laughing. Want Zozo? He said, his voice trembling. Where did you get that? James asked, surprised. Mrs. Abernathy appeared in the doorway, looking embarrassed. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson. I've tried removing it several times, but he keeps finding it and getting upset. Miss Adams said all photos of the former nanny should be put away. Brittany told you to remove Zoe's photos? James asked, suddenly alert. Yes, sir. Mrs. Abernathy nodded. She was quite insistent, said it would confuse the children. James looked down at his son, still clutching the photo tightly. Emma was now awake too, peering over from her bed with tear-filled eyes. Zozo come back? She asked hopefully. James sat on the edge of Max's bed, a knot forming in his stomach. Why was he proceeding with a wedding when his children were so clearly unhappy? And why was Brittany so determined to erase all traces of someone the twins loved? He gently touched the photograph in Max's hand, doubt growing stronger with each passing second. James stared at the photo in Max's small hand, his mind full of questions. Before he could think deeper, his phone buzzed with a text from Brittany. Don't forget the rehearsal dinner tomorrow night. The Liberty Hotel at 6. Everything must be perfect. The next evening, waiters in black uniforms moved through the Liberty Hotel's grand ballroom, serving champagne and appetizers to elegantly dressed guests. The space, once a famous prison, now hosted Boston's most exclusive events. James stood near the bar, watching his parents with the twins. Max and Emma sat quietly in their formal clothes, not showing any interest in the fancy foods or decorations around them. They should be running around laughing, James thought. Why are they so sad? Brittany floated through the room in a white cocktail dress, greeting guests and accepting congratulations. Her diamond earrings caught the light as she laughed with her bridesmaids. Tomorrow's the big day, an older woman said, patting James's arm. Are you excited? Yes, of course, James replied automatically, though his smile felt stiff. Mike approached, holding 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed one to James. How are you holding up? Mike asked quietly. Fine, James said, just tired. The twins aren't sleeping well. Mike lowered his voice. James, about what I was saying at lunch yesterday? Not now, Mike, James interrupted. I don't want to argue tonight. I'm not trying to argue. I'm worried about you. That recording Zoe has… Excuse me, Brittany said, suddenly appearing beside them. James, darling, it's time for the toasts. She reached for the phone in James's hand. Let me take that. You don't want to be interrupted during your speech. Before James could respond, she slipped his phone into her purse and guided him toward the center of the room. Across town, Zoe stood in front of Sarah's bathroom mirror, smoothing down her blue dress, the one she'd worn to her college graduation. It was the only nice outfit she had left. Are you sure about this? Sarah asked from the doorway. You could get in trouble. I have to try one more time, Zoe said. The wedding is tomorrow. This is my last chance to show James the truth. Sarah handed her the authenticated recording on a USB drive. Be careful. I'll wait in the car if you need a quick escape. When they arrived at the Liberty Hotel, Zoe took a deep breath. Wish me luck, she said, stepping out of the car. Inside the hotel lobby, a security guard stopped her immediately. Name, please. I need to check the guest list. I'm here to see James Wilson, Zoe said. It's urgent. The guard checked his tablet. You're not on the list, ma'am. I can't let you in. Zoe waited nervously near the entrance. When a large group of late-arriving guests entered, she slipped in with them, keeping her head down. In the ballroom, James was finishing his toast. And I want to thank you all for being here to celebrate with us, he said, raising his glass. To new beginnings. As guests applauded, James stepped away from the crowd. He needed a moment alone. The doubts he'd felt last night while looking at Max's photo hadn't gone away. If anything, they had grown stronger. He walked to the bar and asked for water. Looking around, he spotted the twins sitting with his mother, their little faces solemn. They're not happy, he thought. How can I go through with this if they're not happy? James? He turned around and was shocked to see Zoe standing there in her blue dress. Zoe? What are you doing here? I need to talk to you, she said quickly. Please, just give me 5 minutes. Instead of calling security immediately, James hesitated. Something in her expression made him pause. How did you get in here?" he asked. "That doesn't matter," Zoe said. "James, Brittany is lying to you. I have proof." "James!" Brittany's voice cut through the conversation like a knife. She rushed over, her face a mask of outrage. "What is she doing here?" Guests nearby turned to watch. The music seemed to fade as Brittany created a scene. "How dare you crash our rehearsal dinner?" she shouted at Zoe. "Haven't you done enough damage?" "Brittany, please," James said, trying to calm her. "Let's not make a scene." "A scene?" Brittany's voice rose higher. "This woman stole from me, and now she's stalking us. She's obsessed with you, James. Can't you see that?" Two security guards approached quickly. "Is there a problem here?" One asked. "Yes," Brittany said immediately. "This woman is not invited and needs to be removed." "Wait," James began, but Brittany clutched his arm. "She's unstable, James," she hissed. "She's trying to ruin our wedding." The security guards took Zoe by the arms. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." "James, please," Zoe pleaded as they led her away. "Listen to the recording. Ask her about the bracelet." As she was escorted toward the exit, Zoe locked eyes with a woman she recognized from the social media photos, Megan. The woman's face showed shock and recognition before she quickly looked away. Outside the hotel, Zoe stood on the sidewalk, fighting back tears. She had failed again. "Zoe?" She turned to see Eleanor Wilson approaching, dressed elegantly for the dinner. "Mrs. Wilson," Zoe said, surprised. "I tried to talk to James, but—" "I know," Eleanor said, looking over her shoulder to make sure no one was watching them. "Brittany makes quite a performance when she wants to." "You've seen it too?" Zoe asked. Eleanor nodded. "The way she acts when James isn't looking. I've tried to tell him, but he won't listen to me. And Robert thinks she's perfect." "What about the twins?" Zoe asked. "Are they okay?" "They miss you terribly," Eleanor admitted. "They're not themselves. But what can I do? I'm just their grandmother." "I have proof that Brittany is lying," Zoe said desperately. "A recording where she admits everything. The bracelet, wanting James's money, not caring about the twins." "Even with proof, James has to be willing to listen," Eleanor said sadly. "And right now, he's not." A car pulled up, and Robert Wilson stepped out. "Eleanor? What are you doing? Everyone's waiting." Eleanor squeezed Zoe's hand quickly. "I have to go. I'm sorry." As the Wilsons disappeared into the hotel, Zoe walked slowly back to Sarah's waiting car. "How did it go?" Sarah asked. "Terrible," Zoe admitted. "Brittany had me thrown out before I could show James anything." Back in her friend's apartment, Zoe scrolled through her phone looking at social media posts from the rehearsal dinner. People were already sharing photos with the wedding hashtag. "I don't know what else to do," she said to Sarah. "The wedding is tomorrow morning. It's over." "Don't give up yet," Sarah encouraged. "There must be something we missed." Zoe continued scrolling through photos, stopping suddenly at an older post from Brittany's bachelorette party the previous weekend. The image showed Brittany with her bridesmaids at an expensive restaurant. "Wait a minute," Zoe whispered, zooming in on the photo. "Look at her wrist." Sarah leaned closer. "Is that—" "The diamond bracelet," Zoe confirmed, her heart racing. "The one she claimed I stole. She's wearing it at her bachelorette party." The photo, posted by Megan with the caption "Last Girls' Night Before the Big Day," was dated 3 days after Zoe had been fired. "This is it," Zoe said, saving the photo. "This is concrete proof she lied." "But how will you show James?" Sarah asked. "You can't get near him." "The wedding is at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning at St. Patrick's Cathedral." Zoe stared at the photo, determination replacing her despair. "I'll find a way. I have to." She looked down at her simple blue dress, now wrinkled from the evening's events. "What does one wear to object at a wedding anyway?" Sarah opened her closet. "Let's see what we can find." After searching through both their limited wardrobes, the reality became clear. Zoe had few options left. Most of her clothes were still in boxes. The nicest things she had were white jeans and a simple white top. "It's not ideal to wear white to someone else's wedding," Sarah said. "But at this point, I think fashion rules are the least of our concerns." Zoe nodded, laying out the outfit for the morning. Tomorrow would determine everything, for her, for James, and most importantly, for Max and Emma. Dawn broke over Boston with soft golden light as Zoe stood at Sarah's apartment window. She'd barely slept, her mind racing with plans and worries. On the chair beside the couch where she'd spent another restless night, her white jeans and top waited, not at all appropriate for a wedding, but the best she could manage. "Morning," Sarah said, entering with 2 cups of coffee. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous," Zoe admitted. "But I have to do this. For Max and Emma." Across town in Beacon Hill, James stood in his bedroom adjusting his bow tie. Outside his window, caterers and staff rushed around preparing for the reception that would follow the ceremony. The mansion's backyard had been transformed with white tents, flowers, and twinkling lights. A soft knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Daddy?" Emma called. James opened the door to find both twins still in their pajamas, their hair messy from sleep. "Hey, you two," he said, kneeling to hug them. "Are you ready for the big day?" "No," Max said simply, clutching his stuffed bear. James sighed. "Let's get you dressed. You both have very important jobs today." In the nursery, James struggled to button Max's tiny formal shirt while the boy squirmed unhappily. "Stay still, buddy," James pleaded. "Just for a minute." "Don't want to," Max protested. Emma sat quietly on her bed, watching as James finally managed to dress her brother. Unlike her usually chatty self, she hadn't said much all morning. As James reached for Emma's dress, his phone rang. It was Mike. "Hey," James answered. "Everything okay?" "Just checking in," Mike replied. "How are you feeling? Any last-minute jitters?" James hesitated. "Actually, Mike, about what you were saying yesterday." Suddenly, Brittany appeared at the doorway, already in her silk robe with her hair perfectly styled. "There you are! We have so much to do!" She walked over and took his phone. "Sorry, Mike. James is busy with the twins. We'll see you at the church." She ended the call and slipped the phone into her pocket. "Brittany, I was talking to him," James said, frowning. "I know, darling, but we're running late," she replied smoothly. "The photographer will be here in 20 minutes and the twins aren't ready." "I'm trying to dress them now," James explained. Brittany looked at the twins with barely concealed impatience. "Well, hurry up, and don't forget, we're leaving for our honeymoon right after the reception. 2 whole weeks in the Maldives, just you and me." "2 weeks?" James repeated. "I thought we agreed on 1 week. I can't leave the twins for that long." "They'll be fine with your parents," Brittany dismissed. "We need time alone to start our marriage properly." She swept out of the room before James could argue further, taking his phone with her. At Sarah's apartment, Zoe carefully prepared her evidence. She checked that the recording would play clearly on her phone and made sure the photo showing Brittany wearing the stolen bracelet was easily accessible. "I've made a backup of everything," Sarah said, transferring files to her own phone. "Just in case." "What if they don't let me in?" Zoe worried. "The church will be filled with important people." "St. Patrick's Cathedral is a public building," Sarah reminded her. "They can't stop you from entering. Besides, they'll be focused on the bride and groom, not a random person slipping in at the back." Zoe nodded, taking deep breaths to calm herself. "I should email this to James one more time. Maybe he'll check his messages before the ceremony." "Good idea," Sarah agreed. "And I'll wait outside in the car. If things go badly, we can leave quickly." Back at the Wilson house, Eleanor arrived early to help with the twins. She found James in his office staring at a framed photo of Catherine, his late wife. "James?" she said softly. "Are you all right?" He turned, quickly wiping his eyes. "Mom, I didn't hear you come in." Eleanor closed the door behind her. "The house is busy with wedding preparations. I wanted to check on you before things get too chaotic." "I'm fine," James said automatically. "Are you?" Eleanor asked, sitting across from him. "James, marriage is a serious commitment. It's okay to have doubts." "I don't have doubts," James replied too quickly. Eleanor reached for his hand. "The twins are struggling. I've seen how they are with Brittany, and I've seen how she is with them when you're not watching." "What do you mean?" James asked, suddenly alert. Before Eleanor could answer, the door burst open and Robert strode in. "There you are," he boomed. "What are you two doing hiding in here?" "There's a schedule to keep." "Robert, I was just talking to James about how proud we are," Robert interrupted, giving his wife a stern look. "Our son is finally moving forward with his life, giving those children a proper mother." "Dad," James began. "No time for chatter," Robert insisted. "The cars will be here in 30 minutes. Eleanor, the twins need your help. James, the photographer wants some shots of you getting ready." As they left the office, James glanced back at the photo of Catherine. The knot of doubt in his stomach grew stronger. At the cathedral, Brittany and her bridesmaids prepared in a beautiful room filled with flowers. Her wedding dress, a designer creation with a 10-foot train, hung on a special stand near the window. "Can you believe it's finally happening?" Her maid of honor gushed. "You're marrying one of Boston's most eligible bachelors." Brittany smiled, examining her perfect makeup in the mirror. "I always get what I want." Megan, standing nervously in the corner, spoke up. "Britt, I need to tell you something. That nanny, Zoe, she was at the rehearsal dinner last night." "I know," Brittany snapped. "I had security throw her out." "She seemed really determined," Megan continued. "What if she tries to come today?" "She wouldn't dare," Brittany said confidently. "And if she does, security will handle it. I've given them her photo." She opened her small white purse to apply more lipstick. Inside, nestled among tissues and mints, was the diamond bracelet she had claimed was stolen. "Is that—" Megan began, pointing at the bracelet. "Yes," Brittany cut her off. "I'm going to find it in our honeymoon suite. I'll say it was misplaced all along. James will be so relieved he won't even question it." Outside the cathedral, guests began arriving in expensive cars and designer outfits. St. Patrick's was Boston's most prestigious church, its Gothic spires rising dramatically against the morning sky. Security guards checked invitations at the main entrance. Several blocks away, Zoe and Sarah parked their car on a side street. "Ready?" Sarah asked, squeezing Zoe's hand. "As ready as I'll ever be," Zoe replied, checking her phone one last time. No response from James to her email. "Remember," Sarah said, "I'll be right here waiting. Whatever happens in there, you did your best." Zoe nodded, stepped out of the car, and began walking toward the cathedral. In her white jeans and simple top, she looked nothing like the elaborately dressed wedding guests streaming toward the church. A few people gave her curious looks, but no one stopped her. Inside the cathedral, James stood at the altar in his tuxedo, watching as guests filled the pews. The magnificent space with its soaring ceilings and stained glass windows would normally inspire awe, but he felt only a growing sense of unease. The twins sat in the front row with Eleanor, unusually quiet in their formal clothes. Max clutched his stuffed bear, refusing to let go even for the ceremony. Mike approached James at the altar. "Everything okay? You look pale." "Fine," James said automatically. "Just nervous, I guess." "It's not too late, you know," Mike said quietly. "If you have doubts—" "Of course he doesn't have doubts," Robert interrupted, appearing beside them. "My son knows a good thing when he sees it." As organ music began to fill the cathedral, Zoe slipped through a side door, her heart pounding. She found a spot at the back, partially hidden behind a column. From here she could see James at the altar, looking handsome but tense. The bridal march began, and everyone stood as the main doors opened. Brittany appeared in her spectacular gown, a vision in white satin and lace. Her smile was dazzling as she processed down the aisle on her father's arm. Zoe watched James's face as he saw his bride. She expected to see love or joy, but instead she saw something that gave her hope, uncertainty. The minister began the ceremony with a welcome to the guests and a few words about marriage. Zoe's hands tightened around her phone as she waited for the critical moment. She knew exactly when it would come, the part of the ceremony where the minister would ask if anyone had reason to object. The twins, seeing Brittany at the altar with their father, remained subdued. Emma whispered something to Max that made him nod seriously. As the minister spoke about the sacred bond of matrimony, Zoe took a deep breath. Everything had led to this moment. She thought of Max and Emma, of their tearful goodbye, of their joy when she read them stories. She thought of the recording that proved Brittany's deceit. She thought of the photograph showing the stolen bracelet. The minister's voice grew solemn as he reached the crucial point. If anyone can show just cause why this couple cannot lawfully be joined together in matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. A momentary silence filled the cathedral. This was it, Zoe's last chance. The silence following the minister's question lasted only seconds, but to Zoe it felt endless. Her heart pounded as she stepped forward from her hiding place. "I do," she said clearly, her voice echoing through the cathedral. Gasps rippled through the church as hundreds of heads turned toward her. Standing in her white jeans and simple top, Zoe looked completely out of place among the elegant guests. "Security!" Brittany hissed immediately. "Remove her!" But before anyone could move, something unexpected happened. From the front row, two small voices cried out in unison. "Zozo!" Max and Emma shouted, their little faces lighting up with joy. They wiggled away from Eleanor and ran down the aisle toward Zoe, arms outstretched. James stared in shock as his children, who had been listless and quiet for weeks, suddenly came alive at the sight of their former nanny. Zoe knelt to embrace the twins briefly, then stood and walked forward with them clinging to her legs. She held her phone in her hand. "James," she said, her voice steady despite her fear, "Brittany Adams is marrying you for your money. I have proof." The cathedral erupted in whispers. Robert Wilson stepped forward angrily, but James held up his hand to stop him. "What proof?" James asked, his face pale. "This," Zoe said, and pressed play on her phone. The recording played clearly through the silent church. "He's rich. I'll marry him, take the money, and leave. Those babies are annoying anyway. And that bracelet I claimed was stolen? I hid it in my bathroom drawer just to get rid of the nanny. She was too close to James." More gasps filled the cathedral. All eyes turned to Brittany, who had gone completely still in her elaborate wedding gown. That's taken out of context," Brittany stammered, looking around desperately. "Is it?" Zoe challenged. "Then explain this." She held up her phone again, showing the photo from the bachelorette party. "This picture was taken 3 days after you accused me of stealing your bracelet. You're wearing it right there on your wrist." James stepped closer to look at the photo, his expression hardening. "Brittany?" What happened next shocked everyone. Instead of continuing to deny it, Brittany laughed. Not a nervous laugh, but a cold, dismissive one that echoed through the cathedral. "So what?" she said, tossing her bouquet onto the altar steps. "Yes, I said those things. Yes, I hid the bracelet. So what?" The crowd murmured in disbelief. Even the minister looked stunned. "You're pathetic, James," Brittany continued, her mask completely dropped now. "You're so desperate for someone to love those brats that you never questioned anything I did. You just wanted to believe." James's face flushed with anger. "Where is it?" he asked quietly. "Where's what?" Brittany challenged, still smirking. "The bracelet you claimed Zoe stole?" James said, his voice growing stronger. "The one you fired her for. Where is it right now?" Trapped by her own admission and the photo evidence, Brittany reached for her small white purse. With defiant eyes, she pulled out the diamond bracelet, the stones catching the light streaming through the stained glass windows. "Happy now?" she asked coldly. The cathedral exploded into conversation. Guests stood up, pointing and whispering. Photographers who had been hired to capture the wedding were now documenting its spectacular collapse. "You lied," James said, his voice cutting through the noise. "You destroyed someone's reputation and took away the person my children love most. For what? Money?" Brittany rolled her eyes. "Please, don't act so shocked. What did you think a woman like me saw in a boring widower with twins? Your bank account was the only interesting thing about you." Eleanor had joined Zoe and the twins, her arm protectively around Emma. "I knew there was something wrong about you," she said to Brittany. "The way you looked at these children when you thought no one was watching." Robert stood speechless for once, his face red with embarrassment. Many of his friends and colleagues were witnessing the entire scene. Brittany looked around at the shocked faces and laughed again. "You're all so judgmental. At least I'm honest now. He's rich, I wanted his money. Those kids are annoying, and no one else was volunteering to be their mother." At this, Zoe stepped forward. "That's not true. These children are brilliant and loving. Anyone would be lucky to be in their lives." Max and Emma clung tighter to Zoe, sensing the tension but feeling safe with her. James looked at his children, then at Zoe, and finally at Brittany. His face settled into a mask of controlled fury. "There will be no wedding today," he announced loudly, removing his boutonniere and placing it on the altar. "I apologize to all our guests for the inconvenience." Brittany's confident smirk faltered. "You can't be serious. Do you know how much this wedding cost? What people will say?" "I don't care," James replied simply. "Get out of my sight, Brittany. And leave that bracelet. Since you used it to frame someone innocent, I don't think you deserve to keep it." "You'll regret this," Brittany hissed, but her threat sounded hollow in the large space. Megan and the other bridesmaids looked at each other awkwardly, unsure what to do. Finally, Megan stepped forward. "Come on, Britt," she said quietly. "It's over." As Brittany was led away by her bridesmaids, her white train dragging behind her, the crowd continued to whisper and point. Some guests were already leaving, while others remained, too fascinated by the drama to depart. James turned to the minister. "I'm sorry about this," he said. The older man nodded understandingly. "I've been doing this for 30 years, son. You're not the first to call off a wedding, though I must say this was more dramatic than most." James then walked down the altar steps to where Zoe stood with his children. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, years of trust and betrayal and hope passing between them. "You came back for them," he said finally, "even after how I treated you." "I would do anything for them," Zoe replied simply. "And for you," she added more softly. Max tugged on James's pant leg. "Daddy, Zozo stay now?" James knelt down to his son's level. "Would you like that, buddy? Would you like Zoe to come home with us?" Both twins nodded enthusiastically, the first genuine excitement they'd shown in weeks. James looked up at Zoe. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said. "But if you're willing, we have a lot to talk about." Eleanor stepped forward. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private. There are still about 200 people watching us." Indeed, the remaining wedding guests were openly staring at the unfolding scene between James and Zoe. "Mom's right," James said. "Let's go home." As they prepared to leave, Mike approached. "I'll handle things here," he offered. "Make the necessary announcements, thank people for coming." "Thanks, Mike," James said gratefully. "I owe you." "You don't owe me anything," Mike replied, "but you might owe her." He nodded toward Zoe. Outside the cathedral, reporters had already gathered, alerted by guests' social media posts about the wedding disaster. James guided Zoe and the twins toward a side exit where his car was waiting. "This way," he said, holding the door for them. "We have a lot to talk about." As they drove away from St. Patrick's Cathedral, leaving behind the chaos of the failed wedding, Max and Emma chattered happily from their car seats, asking Zoe questions and showing her toys they'd brought for the wedding. James watched them in the rearview mirror, their faces animated for the first time in weeks. He glanced at Zoe beside him, her simple white outfit a stark contrast to Brittany's elaborate gown. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not giving up on us." The future was uncertain, but for the first time in months, it also felt full of possibility. James's car pulled into the driveway of his Beacon Hill home, past reporters already gathering at the gate. Inside the house, the contrast was jarring. Decorations for the wedding reception still hung in the entryway, a painful reminder of the day's events. "Zozo home," Emma announced happily, holding Zoe's hand as they entered. "Let's go to my office," James suggested. "We need to talk, and the twins can play with their toys there." In James's spacious home office, Max and Emma settled on the floor with a box of blocks while the adults sat awkwardly on opposite sides of the desk. "I don't even know where to begin," James said, loosening his bow tie. "I'm so sorry, Zoe. I should have trusted you." "You believed what made sense at the time," Zoe replied carefully. "Brittany was very convincing." "Tell me about the recording," James said. "How did you discover it?" Zoe explained how she'd left her phone recording accidentally when she packed her things. "When I listened to it later, I couldn't believe what I heard. I tried calling you immediately, but my number was blocked." "Brittany must have blocked you from my phone," James said, rubbing his forehead. "She was always helping with my phone settings. I never even thought to check." "I tried everything," Zoe continued. "Email, your office, your parents. Every door closed." James winced. "My father. He was pretty harsh with you, wasn't he?" "He believed what you believed," Zoe said diplomatically, "that I was trying to cause trouble." The doorbell rang repeatedly, interrupting their conversation. James checked the security camera on his phone. "Reporters," he sighed. "They're not going away anytime soon." His phone buzzed with a text from Mike. "Situation handled at Cathedral. Media circus growing. Call me when you can." "What happens now?" Zoe asked softly, watching the twins play. Before James could answer, his parents arrived. Robert and Eleanor had taken a different car from the cathedral to avoid the press. The twins ran to greet their grandparents, chattering excitedly about Zozo being back. Eleanor hugged Zoe warmly. "I'm so glad you were brave enough to speak up," she said. "I knew something wasn't right about that woman." Robert stood awkwardly in the doorway, his usual confidence deflated. "Miss Johnson," he began stiffly, "I owe you an apology. I was mistaken in my judgment." "Thank you, Mr. Wilson," Zoe replied. "I understand why you wanted to believe Brittany. You wanted what was best for your family." "Obviously, I had no idea what that actually was," Robert admitted. "The way those children respond to you, it speaks volumes." James offered his parents coffee, and they moved to the kitchen. The house felt strangely calm despite the chaos of the day. Outside, caterers were quietly dismantling the reception that would never happen. "Have you heard from Brittany?" Eleanor asked James as they sat around the kitchen island. "No, and I don't expect to," James replied. "Mike is handling things at the church. Apparently she left with her bridesmaids." "The guests were in complete shock," Robert said, shaking his head. "I've never seen anything like it. The Prescotts, the Harringtons, all of Boston society witnessed that meltdown." "I don't care about Boston society right now, Dad," James said firmly. "I care about my children and the fact that I almost made a terrible mistake." "She fooled us all," Eleanor said, patting his hand. "Well, almost all of us." She smiled at Zoe, who was helping the twins with their blocks. James's phone rang. It was Mike. "You're all over the news," Mike reported. "Every station in Boston is running with the story. Tech millionaire's wedding dramatically halted by former nanny." "Great," James groaned. "That's not all," Mike continued. "Brittany's trying to control the narrative. She's contacting people claiming you and Zoe were having an affair, and that's why you called off the wedding." "That's ridiculous," James exclaimed. "No one will believe that." "Actually," Mike said, "it's already falling apart. Megan, Brittany's friend? She apparently had enough. She's sharing texts where Brittany explicitly talked about marrying you for your money. Those are circulating now, too." After ending the call, James shared this development with the others. "Well," Robert said, "at least the truth is coming out." Eleanor checked her watch. "It's nearly the twins' nap time. Should I take them upstairs?" "I'll do it," Zoe offered, standing up. "If that's okay with everyone." "Please," James said gratefully. "They've missed their routine with you." As Zoe led the twins upstairs, talking softly about their favorite naptime stories, Eleanor turned to her son. "James, what are you going to do now?" "About Zoe, I mean." "I'm going to ask her to come back," James said immediately. "The twins need her." "And what about you?" Eleanor asked gently. "What do you need?" James looked at his mother in surprise. "I need stability for my family. Peace." Robert cleared his throat. "Son, I think what your mother is asking is whether your feelings for Zoe extend beyond her role as the twins' nanny." "Dad," James said, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation, "Zoe just saved me from making a huge mistake. I'm not going to complicate things by... she probably doesn't even... It's not the right time to think about that." "Of course," Eleanor said, sharing a knowing look with her husband. "Just something to consider." Upstairs, Zoe sat between the twins' beds, finishing their favorite story about a bear family. Both children were fighting sleep, afraid she might disappear again. "Zozo stay?" Max asked sleepily, clutching his bear. "We'll talk about that when you wake up," Zoe said softly. "Close your eyes now." "Promise?" Emma insisted, her little hand gripping Zoe's finger. "I promise we'll talk about it," Zoe assured her. "Sweet dreams, little ones." When both twins were finally asleep, Zoe stood in the doorway watching them for a moment. She had missed them desperately. Downstairs, she found James alone in the living room. His parents had left to give them privacy to talk. "They're asleep," Zoe reported. "They fought it hard, though. I think they're afraid I'll be gone when they wake up." James gestured for her to sit. "That's actually what I wanted to discuss." "Zoe, would you consider coming back as their nanny?" "Is that what you want?" Zoe asked. "More than anything," James admitted. "The twins need you." "I need your help with them." Zoe took a deep breath. "I'd like to come back, but things would have to be different." "Of course," James agreed quickly. "Higher salary, better hours, whatever you need." "It's not about money," Zoe explained. "It's about trust and respect. If I come back, we need clear boundaries and expectations. I need to know you'll trust me, that you'll listen if I have concerns." James nodded solemnly. "You're absolutely right. I failed you before, and I won't make that mistake again." "And the twins," Zoe continued. "They need stability. No more revolving door of potential mothers. They're still grieving Catherine in their own way, even if they never knew her." "I rushed into things with Brittany," James admitted. "I wanted to give them a mother so badly that I ignored all the warning signs." "They have people who love them," Zoe said gently. "That's what matters most." They talked for another hour, working out the details of Zoe's return. She would move into the guest house on the property, giving her privacy while still being close to the twins. Her role would be expanded to household manager with a significant salary increase. "When can you start?" James asked hopefully. "I need a few days to get my things from Sarah's apartment," Zoe replied, "and to thank her for everything she did to help me." "Of course," James said. "Take all the time you need. The guest house is yours whenever you're ready." The sound of Emma calling Daddy from upstairs interrupted their conversation. "Nap time's over," James smiled, standing up. "Should we go tell them the good news together?" When they entered the twins' room, Max and Emma were already climbing out of their beds, eyes lighting up when they saw Zoe. "Zozo's still here," Max exclaimed happily. James knelt down to their level. "Guess what? Zoe is coming back to live with us. She'll be staying in the guest house." The twins' joyful squeals filled the room as they threw themselves at Zoe, hugging her tightly. "Zozo home forever?" Emma asked hopefully. Zoe met James's eyes over the twins' heads. "For now," she said carefully. "We'll take it one day at a time." Outside the window, reporters still lingered at the gate, and James's phone continued to buzz with messages about the wedding scandal. But inside, in this moment with the twins and Zoe, he felt a peace he hadn't experienced in months. The future was uncertain, but for the first time since Catherine's death, it also felt right. 3 months after the wedding that never happened, golden autumn light streamed through the windows of the newly renovated guest house. Zoe stood in the center of the living room, directing the workers who were installing the final bookshelves. "A little higher on the left side, please," she instructed. "Perfect. Thank you." The guest house transformation had been James's idea. What was once a simple 2-bedroom structure was now a comfortable home with a modern kitchen, cozy living area, and office space. It gave Zoe the privacy she needed while keeping her close to the twins. Outside, Max and Emma played in a pile of fallen leaves, supervised by Eleanor, who visited more frequently these days. Through the window, Zoe could see James sitting on the back patio of the main house conducting a video call while Emma's drawings covered the table in front of him. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. "Meeting almost done. Twins excited about park after lunch?" This was the new normal now. James had restructured his work schedule, taking fewer business trips and working from home 3 days each week. The twins were thriving with the consistency and attention. "All finished, Ms. Johnson," the lead carpenter said, packing up his tools. "Anything else you need?" "No, it's perfect. Thank you," Zoe replied. After the workers left, Zoe walked to the main house. In the kitchen, she found James finishing his call while Emma sat on his lap, coloring. "Yes, we'll launch the new security protocol next quarter," James was saying. "I need to go now. Family time. Thanks, everyone." He ended the call and smiled at Zoe. "Hey, how's the shelving coming along?" "All done," she replied. "The guest house is officially complete." "It's not the guest house anymore," James corrected gently. "It's your house." Emma looked up from her coloring. "Zozo house. Can I see?" "After lunch," Zoe promised. "Where's your brother?" "With Gamma," Emma said, referring to Eleanor. "Catching leaves." James set Emma down and stood up. "Mom's teaching them how leaves change colors." "Dad's coming later, too." "Robert's visiting again?" Zoe asked, surprised. "That's the second time this week." The relationship between James and his father had shifted since the wedding disaster. Robert, humbled by his poor judgment of Brittany, was making genuine efforts to be more involved with his grandchildren. "He's bringing supplies for the birthday party," James explained. "Can you believe the twins will be 2 years old tomorrow?" The next morning, Zoe woke early to decorate the backyard. She hung colorful streamers and arranged balloons in the shape of the number 2. The weather forecast promised a perfect fall day for the small celebration they had planned. In the main house, she found James in the kitchen attempting to frost a cake shaped like a teddy bear. "Need some help?" she offered, laughing at the lopsided icing. "Please," he said gratefully, handing her the spatula. "I'm better with computer code than cake decorating." As Zoe smoothed the frosting, James leaned against the counter, watching her. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for everything you do for us." "It's my job," Zoe replied simply. "It's more than that," James said. "You know it is." Their eyes met briefly before Zoe looked away, focusing on the cake. Over the past 3 months, they had developed a comfortable rhythm, carefully respecting the boundaries they'd established. But there were moments, like this one, when something more seemed to hover between them. The doorbell interrupted the moment. Eleanor and Robert arrived first, followed by Mike and his girlfriend, and then Sarah, who had become a regular visitor. "Zoe!" Sarah exclaimed, hugging her friend. "The place looks amazing!" "Come see my house," Zoe said proudly. leading Sarah toward the guest house. "I still can't believe it's mine." As they walked across the lawn, Sarah nudged her friend. "So, how are things with James?" "Professional," Zoe replied firmly. "We're focused on the twins." "Uh-huh," Sarah said skeptically. "And that's why he looks at you like that when you're not watching?" "Sarah, please," Zoe sighed. "It's complicated. The twins need stability, not confusion." Back at the main house, the twins were the center of attention in their matching party outfits. Max showed Robert his new toy trucks while Emma twirled in her dress for Eleanor. "They're so different from 3 months ago," Eleanor commented to James. "So happy and confident." "They have their Zozo back," James said simply. The party was small but joyful. The twins blew out their candles with help from James and Zoe, then opened presents with excitement. As afternoon turned to evening, guests gradually departed until only the immediate family remained. James received a delivery just as Robert and Eleanor were leaving, an envelope of legal documents. "What's that?" Eleanor asked. "Confirmation that Brittany's attempt to sue for emotional distress was dismissed by the court," James explained. "Her lawyer withdrew from the case after the evidence became public." "Where is she now?" Robert inquired. "New York, last I heard," James replied. Her reputation in Boston was pretty much destroyed. After his parents left, James put the twins to bed with Zoe's help. Their bedtime routine was a team effort now. Bath time with Daddy, stories with Zoe, goodnight kisses from both. With the twins asleep, James and Zoe sat on the back patio. The autumn evening was cool but pleasant, with string lights illuminating the yard where the birthday decorations still hung. "Successful party," Zoe said, relaxing in her chair. "They had a great time." "They did," James agreed. "It's hard to believe how much has changed in 3 months." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before James spoke again. "I've been thinking about something," he said carefully. "About us, you, me, and the twins." Zoe turned to look at him. "What about us?" "You're the only mother they've ever known," James said. "The way they look at you, the way they trust you, it's everything I could have hoped for them." "I love them," Zoe said simply. "I know you do," James replied. "And they love you. That's why I wanted to suggest something." He shifted in his chair to face her directly. "I'm not asking for marriage or even a romantic relationship if that's not what you want. But I want you to know that you'll always have a place here, with us, whatever that looks like." "What exactly are you suggesting?" Zoe asked quietly. "A commitment," James explained. "Not just an employment contract. A promise that you're part of this family, however you want to define that role. The twins need you. And if I'm being completely honest, I need you too." Zoe was silent for a long moment. "This is a big conversation, James." "I know," he acknowledged. "And we don't have to figure it all out tonight. I just wanted you to know how I feel." "I care about you," Zoe admitted. "But I'm afraid of rushing into something that might not work. The twins would be the ones hurt if things went wrong." "That's why we take it one day at a time," James said. "No pressure, no expectations beyond what feels right. Just honesty and respect." Zoe nodded slowly. "I can commit to that. Honesty and respect, and taking things one day at a time." James smiled, reaching for her hand. "That's all I'm asking for now." As fall turned to winter, the Wilson house transformed. Thanksgiving brought a table full of family and friends. Christmas preparations began with Zoe teaching the twins to make paper snowflakes while James hung lights outside. One snowy December morning, James watched from the doorway as Zoe helped the twins build a blanket fort in the living room. Their laughter filled the house, warming it more effectively than the fireplace crackling nearby. Later that day, he visited a small jewelry shop in downtown Boston. The artisan jeweler greeted him by name. "Mr. Wilson, I have the piece you designed," she said, opening a velvet box. Inside was not an engagement ring, but something uniquely meaningful. A pendant with 3 intertwined circles in different metals, representing James, Max, and Emma. "It's perfect," James said. "And the engraving?" The jeweler turned over the pendant to reveal the words, "Family is love, chosen every day." "She'll love it," the jeweler assured him. "I hope so," James replied, thinking of Zoe's smile. "It's not about romance, at least not yet. It's about belonging." On Christmas morning, James, Zoe, and the twins sat in their pajamas by the tree. The twins tore through their presents with excitement while the adults sipped coffee and took photos. When the children were occupied with their new toys, James handed Zoe a small box. "What's this?" she asked, surprised. "Just something to make it official," James said. "Your family, Zoe. Whatever shape that takes in the future." As Zoe opened the box and saw the pendant, her eyes filled with tears. The message was clear. This unconventional family they had built was real, chosen, and treasured. Outside, snow fell softly on Boston, covering the elegant houses of Beacon Hill in white. Inside the Wilson home, something even more beautiful had taken root. A family founded on truth, forgiveness, and genuine love. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen